Mario Kart Double Dash is an absolute classic from Nintendo. A classic that I've barely played throughout my entire life. I'm just more of a Mario Kart Wii guy, I'm sorry. But anyway, a few weeks ago I made this video and I got a bunch of comments to take a look at some of the older Mario Kart games. So in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with Mario Kart Double Dash. If you haven't watched either of these two videos, don't worry, I'll fill you in on how I'm doing this. Basically, I'm trying to figure out how many of the tracks in this game I could take like a regular old Ford Focus on and complete a full race on. Like say, every person that works at Nintendo went absolutely crazy and decided to make these tracks in real life, but only allowed regular cars to drive on them. I will say that I'm talking about a car with a little bit better suspension, so a jump like this would just slightly damage the car instead of like total the thing. I'm also going to be ignoring the terrain that these tracks are on in this game. So a track like Sherbetland wouldn't be called impossible just because it's on ice, or a track like Peach Beach wouldn't have anything against it just because a lot of cars get stuck in sand. I'd also like to say real quick that I'm absolutely awful at this game, alright? I grew up playing Mario Kart Wii, so please don't hate my completely awful gameplay during this video. And sadly, this game does not have a nice Mercedes that I can go ride around in, so sadly I'm gonna have to ride in this normal Wario car thing. At least it kinda looks like a real life car, right? Oh, and I'm also gonna be playing at 150cc because that's the closest I can get to like an actual car's speed. So anyway, let's get started with the first cup of this game, Mushroom Cup. Pretty much every Mario Kart game starts out with a track that's really basic, and in this game, that track is Luigi's Circuit. Right at the start of the race is this tiny little jump onto the main portion of the track. And actually there's two of these things, there's one at the other end too. Now I did say in the intro that this car has a little bit extra suspension. Also you can see on some of the other tracks that a normal car is actually way bigger than these little dinky things Mario and friends are driving around in. So with all this in mind, I think this little drop off would be fine for a normal car to do like 6 times throughout the race. Outside of this, Luigi's Circuit is just a flat road to drive on, so we have our first pass of the video. Next up is Peach Beach, and since the terrain doesn't matter, this track doesn't really have any problems. On every lap you can just avoid the water that's coming up, so you don't have to worry about that flooding your engine. And outside of that, there really isn't any big obstacles or anything this track throws at you, making for our second drivable track of the game. Also, a real car would totally run this stupid Cataquax right over. Baby Park is actually designed by 2 babies, so you know how basic the track is. Not a single obstacle, not a single ramp, and not even a single boost pad. I don't think you could make a more drivable track if you tried to. Dry Desert has a few obstacles on the course, like these ramps and these dunes, but everything is super avoidable, even for a horrible driver like me. Even the knockoff Sarlacc pit is avoidable too. Whoa, that's pretty crazy. This cup actually went 4 for 4 on drivable tracks. Let's see if the next cup can keep this up. Mushroom Bridge, a track that needs to be retroed in the next Mario Kart game, is the first track of Flower Cup. While there are some alternate routes you can take on this one, the central road for this track is, well, just a real-life road. It's equipped with real-life semi-trucks and everything. While you may encounter some traffic on this one, it'll be completely possible to drive on in real life. The second track here is Mario Circuit, and did you really think we could have a Mario Kart game without a Mario Kart Circuit? Come on. For most of this track, it's just a normal road with one spot with a chain shop that could be easily driven around. To be honest, the only real questionable part of this track comes in the dirt section when you encounter these mogul-looking things. The bumps in this road probably would be bad for the car, but I think it would be able to carry on after with just minimal damage. Also, maybe a scraped front bumper from this little hump in the road, but that's it. This damage wouldn't be enough to ruin the car or anything though, so this track would be possible. Like from personal experience, I know a scraped front bumper is completely fine to drive on. Just trust me, I know. Daisy Cruiser is just a little bit different than this remake in the Booster Course Pass, but the only things that really changed were the pool in the front of the boat and the aquarium part below deck. Everything else about this track is completely fine, so the streak of passing tracks continues. Rounding out this cup is Waluigi Stadium, and I will say first of all that all of the obstacles and stuff are avoidable, so these big piranha plant things don't matter. I also said in my last part of the series that this track's remake was possible to drive on, but after some more time thinking about it and some comments mentioning it, I think I'm gonna have to change my mind. I know like a dirt bike could definitely do this with no problems, but remember, I'm just talking about regular cars. And with all the big jumps on this course, I think a regular car would break down before completing 3 laps on this track. Like there's no way the suspension is surviving this place, even if it's a little bit stronger. So sadly that means our streak of drivable tracks ends here. So I guess now let's see if Star Cup will turn it around from here. Before I start, I just gotta say that it's crazy that 3 of the 4 tracks in this cup are in Mario Kart 8 in some way or another, which is just crazy. But anyway, the first track of Star Cup is Sherbet Land, and wow, okay, so they all say Sherbet instead of Sherbert. I thought that it was only in the new game, but nope, it's always been Sherbet. Anyway, this one's fully possible since ice isn't a problem. I'm sure there's some way you can end up with these freeze guys called, oh, freezies. Wow, I was super close. Oh yeah, I was saying that there's probably some random way where these guys can end up blocking your path or something, but I would say that's so rare that it doesn't really matter for this. Mushroom City is another one of those tracks where you just drive on a real road, so you'd assume that it was fully possible right off the bat, but it's not that easy. At the end of this track, there's a section where you drive onto oncoming traffic, which, yeah, don't do that in real life. Anyway, in the game, you can drive in between these 2 oncoming cars, but like a real size car would definitely hit at least one of these 2. This is only a real problem though when 2 cars are driving side by side, making it impossible to pass. In my experience, this happens every other lap I take, so if I'm being honest, I don't really know what to do here. I'd say it's possible to drive this course some of the time in real life, but not others. So I think for the very first time, I'm gonna have to do a half pass because it both fails and passes at the same time. So 0.5 points to Gryffindor or whatever. Now onto Yoshi's Circuit. I'm not sure if everyone watching knows this, but this track is actually in the shape of Yoshi. I'm just saying that because I'm kind of an idiot and I didn't notice that until like my 5th or 6th time playing this track. Anyway, this one is just a fully flat road from start to finish, so we have ourselves an easy +1 here. DK Mountain is awesome, and let me just say, why isn't the remake this difficult anymore? Like, look at how skinny the road is in this version compared to the new version here. Like, come on, make it a little bit more challenging. But anyway, part of why this track is so awesome is this huge cannon at the start of the map, which would probably explode a car into like 1,000 pieces. So we actually have a track here that I can easily deem completely impossible. Now we're on to our final cup. Wario Coliseum is the first track of our last cup. And this is, I think, the first track in Mario Kart history that is only 2 laps. This behemoth of a track is filled with a bunch of scary ledges and real sharp turns. So yeah, you can imagine how well I drove on this thing when I recorded the footage. Just because a track would be scary to drive on it, doesn't mean it would be impossible though. But this track has more than just the scary ledges. There are some huge jumps on this track that I think would be questionable at best for a normal car, and then this one right here would straight up just be impossible, so there's no chance for this track. The second track up is Dino Dino Jungle, and just by the name you can tell that there's going to be some dinosaurs somewhere in this track. Just because dinosaurs aren't around anymore in real life, it doesn't mean this track can't be possible. Because you can honestly just make an animatronic thing or some sort of paper mache obstacle if you were to make this track in real life. The only actual questionable thing to me about this track is the geysers. I think the first set of them in the cave are just fine, because you can just time them out so you just drive by them when they're not going off. The real question though is the set of 4 of them at the end of the track. They are a bit narrower, so a real car might have some trouble sneaking in between them, and the actual hole that the water is erupting from is super jagged and would probably do a little bit damage to a car. I think the damage it would cause though wouldn't render the car undrivable, so this track would be completely possible. This game's Bowser's Castle is up next, and it's a much closer call than what I would expect coming from a Bowser's Castle track. Like, usually these things are insane and would never be close to being possible, but this one's different. First of all, most of this track is just made up of flat or slightly sloped roads, which I have no problem with to work. One thing that's kind of a problem, but not really, is this flame section thing, but you could just time it and not have to worry about driving through fire at all. The big question though is about these 2 jumps on this track, and while I think it's close, I don't think that taking these jumps a combined total of 6 times would be possible to do in a normal car. So I'm gonna have to say this one is not possible. Now we're on to our last track, and you kinda knew this was coming. The last track of this game is Rainbow Road. I really hope this track gets remade in the next Mario Kart game, because this track is so cool, I just love it. For this video though, this track isn't even close to passing. This whole elevator thing 2/3 of the way through the track just would not translate into a real life thing and would either blow up the car or just not be possible. So yeah, that rounds out all the cups in the game. Well, that was every track in Mario Kart Double Dash that you can drive on in real life. In total, 10.5 of the total 16 tracks in the game are drivable in real life. It's actually pretty crazy that over half of the tracks in this game, passed. Like what? Here are the stats for each cup if you want it. The tracks here are still interesting and fun to race on, but they aren't like twisting and turning and crazy and all underwater and all that. So I found that pretty cool. But yeah, I had a lot of fun making this video and I really hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, it'd be sick if you gave it a like and maybe subscribed. I'm a small channel and it'd be really cool to grow. But yeah, thanks for watching this far into the video, and yeah. Okay, bye.